with the preconditions of knowledge. So it's kind of like, I would agree with you that we're not going to settle the issue of like what things are possible or not possible apart from what types of things we think are possible within our worldviews or our paradigms. So ultimately for me, it's kind of a worldview question where we end up saying, well, the only way that I know what's possible is based on some kind of metaphysical assumption from the outset. And in order to go about that, we end up having to do worldview or transcendental argumentation. So that's kind of debating things at a fundamental level. And the challenge is this, that if the Christian God does not exist.
It's just all about the patient. I want this to be.
Oh, Lord.
Be a great experience for them. If I can be the one that comforts them and makes them
NPCs and player characters, well,
not exist, then knowledge, metaphysics, and ethics becomes impossible to justify or make sense of. So I usually flip this argument and say that the way that I know is that without that God existing, knowledge in terms of justified true belief wouldn't really even be possible. And so God becomes, for me, in my argument, the necessary grounding for the possibility of knowledge, logic, ethics at all. That's the transcendental argument, and I think it's the strongest one.
By the way, I want to, the other thing, like, I feel like I could have done better in my conversation with Jonathan Peugeot is, like, I want to concede to as many points as I possibly can, because that way I don't detract. I really have one singular point, and I don't want it to get lost. And I feel like with religious debate and conversation, the arguments often get tangled up because there's so many layers of understanding that we can get to with these conversations. So let me concede as much as I can. You're making, so God exists, right? I have no problem with that. Why not? So God is, let's say God is real, and and that explains, I think, whatever you were saying about like ethics or something. So again, let me ask the question: how do you know that the stories of the Bible actually happened?
Yeah, Andy, they persecuted me. So he just said a bunch of bullshit and then asked the same question. What is wrong with these people? Jay already answered that question, and then he just asked it again. Dumb.
Because of the transcendental argument. That's where I start from.
So I don't know if I followed the argument, but I think what your argument is saying is, like, because of some things that we see in the world, like, I don't know, like patterns or something, that therefore I'm not following. Like, what's the argument?
So the form of the argument is X is a necessary condition of Y therefore X. The argument in terms of how I explicate it is that if God didn't exist, then there would be no way to have justified true belief. That is, a way to ground our knowledge in terms of epistemology. And so because we do have knowledge, or we appear to, exchange information and have conversations, and we use language and meaning and numbers and math and all that, then knowledge appears to exist. And so therefore, in order for knowledge to even be possible, requires some kind of ultimate absolute, some kind of ultimate principle, and namely that is the Christian God. So the Christian God does the work of grounding as a kind of, in theology is called divine conceptualism. So meaning, language, all these things are only possible, and it's in the sense of justifying their existence and their.
Jay, maybe I'm fucking stupid. I'm not understanding this at all, man. Let me try to read it back to you, and then So the essence of what you're saying is, like, look, you're not trying to prove the Bible stories being true from first principles, saying, hey, Jake, look, here's the evidence. This
is Jay Dyer and Jake Newfield, whoever the hell that is.
I know it's true. What you're doing is the reverse, which I think is a reasonable approach to take, right? To say, like, I want to think of an analogy. Like, if I can't prove something, like if I find a dead person with a bullet hole in their head and I can't find the gun, I could infer, like, hey, this person probably got shot in the head because now there's a bullet hole in their head, right? So it's possible for us to infer causal relationships.
No,
in the reverse.
So I don't fault you for.
But I really, like, I don't know if it's because I haven't slept enough. Like, so you're saying. Can you say your argument in like one sentence? Like, so you think the essence of what you're saying is you think the stories of the Bible happened because of some way that they're manifesting themselves in reality. I'm just not clear what you're really saying. Like,
yeah, I mean, right. So again, it's a specific type of logical argument called the transcendental argument for God's existence, right?
Yes.
And it posits that before you can even do the type of questioning that you're asking about what's possible in terms of miracles or Bible stories or whatever, that there are prior questions that we all have and assumptions about what's possible that have to be debated and discussed first. So in your worldview, you would, as a skeptic or an atheist or whatever your position is, agnostic, you would assume that, well, it just doesn't seem like those things are possible. So at the outset, you and I have different accounts of what things are and aren't possible, metaphysically speaking. So the point there is just to say that
I don't think we do at all. If I told you, hey man, like my grandma rose from the dead today, you'd be like, nah, man, no, she didn't. Like, let me see evidence of that. I would bet that you and I, Jay, have the same understanding of what generally is metaphysically possible.
Well, no, but because my ultimate governing commitment is the Christian paradigm, yours is not. So no, we have fundamentally different accounts of what things are and are not possible.
Would you believe me if I told you right now my grandmother rose from the dead today?
No, I would not.
Why not?
Because it's very unlikely.
Right, because why? Because it violates what you know about physics, right?
No, it's just it wouldn't be likely just given a common sense account of what things typically occur. But
exactly. So you have take your words. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
So the whole argument, I think you missed the entire argument. The argument is not settled by particular claims about this or that event in our lives. It's a question of paradigms as a whole. And you're reading everything, all the evidence that comes into your brain or whatever is read through your worldview, through your paradigm. And so you say your assumption is that certain things are not possible or very, very unlikely. But that has nothing to do with whether or not you can give an account for these things as a whole. So do you believe that there's objective truth or that knowledge is possible?
I don't know. You have to define those terms. And by the way, I don't want to, I'm not trying to, I don't want to like outright try to refute what you're saying or try to kind of push you to a corner. I really am genuinely like trying to understand.
Right, so I mean, we've heard skeptical claims a lot, and I don't have a problem with you bringing forward sort of the skeptical claim or argument, but the point is that this is a much deeper issue than whether or not it's possible for something out of the ordinary to happen. So let's say that your grandmother did appear to, come back or wake up out of the coffin or something like that. I mean, you would probably assume that even if that occurred, it wasn't a miracle. It was some sort of like, weird phenomenon that we haven't studied or understood yet, or science hasn't given us an answer yet, right? So even if someone rose from the dead, it wouldn't necessarily mean that the supernatural is true, even in your worldview, right?
No, I mean, if someone rose from the dead, I would be a believer, man. I would say, wow, that's pretty good evidence that something's going on here. I would, in that instant, I would try to find a religious.
Well, don't you think that? So there's a lot of claims of this in the world, right? And most skeptics.
Is my mic okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
It's like good because I got this Shure microphone. I don't know if it's coming. The audio on Twitter Spaces doesn't really give me an option to. You
sound great to me. So.
Do I?
You sound great, yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. You should see. Okay. So anyway, so you were saying.
No, I mean, there are miracle claims all the time in the world, and most people do not accept them. They most of the time they will say, well, there's probably another explanation for that. And you don't think in the case of your grandmother, you would look for another explanation?
Yeah. So if I saw it, then I would say, wow, that's pretty remarkable. If I told you my grandmother rose from the dead, hopefully you would not believe me. You would say, dude, I don't believe you. That sounds pretty unlikely.
Well, that's precisely why this issue can't be solved on what people's claims are. And it's and so that's why it goes to the paradigm level. That's the whole point of the transcendental argument.
So let's then, I was saying I don't understand the transcendental argument. Let's drill into the transcendental argument. So I'm going to say what I understand about it, and then maybe you can elaborate a bit, and we can have a substantive conversation about this argument itself. So the transcendental argument, as I understand from you, is that we understand the divinity of the Bible or of Christianity based on the causes of that source. So based on what we're seeing.
It's not the causal argument.
In reality. So So I guess let's just dig into that. So what is it about the world?
Right, so the transitional argument is prior to the teleological argument, is prior to the causal argument. It's before all of those, because it's an argument about the possibility of arguing at all. So it's a meta level argument. Are you familiar with like meta level argumentation?
I just think it's. I guess.
Well, maybe you need to understand it first, because I'm not trying to be rude, but like let's understand it first. So, what is your worldview first, by the way? Agnostic?
I don't know. You know what? I actually, on principle, I'm going to stay away from any of those terms because I don't think they're helpful in this context. In fact, I think they detract from the point. I think
This is so pathetic. He doesn't. Well, I think if I were to tell you my position, that would detract from the point. But the whole point is like, let's compare our worldviews. What the
problem with these religious arguments is you have people like Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson who, because of their own ego primarily, are kind of rambling and trying to intertwine these complex terms. I'm going to use as simple terms as possible and as few words as possible to make my points, because I think that is at the crux of a powerful argument. And I can very concisely describe how I understand reality without the use of any of these more complex theories, right? So what do I believe? I believe we live on planet Earth, and it's round and it orbits the sun. I believe that we have an intact.
Jay's like shaking his head. So here's the atheist story. Like, here, let me tell you my atheist fantasy. They love to tell these grand stories.
System for discerning truth about history.
And what would that be?
Yeah, so hold on. So I believe we have an intact system for discerning truth about, generally speaking, about science and history. And we sometimes get it wrong. Sometimes we fuck it up. And sometimes the details are wrong. But you and I both agree, I don't even have to ask this, you and I both agree that largely speaking, our global societal understanding of history is true, right? Neither you.
No, I have no idea what that even means. That's just appeals to generalities that I don't even know what that means.
So I'll be very specific. Both you and I agree that claims of the fact that the Mayans had a thriving civilization, that.
What is he appealing to? Like, you see, this is how when you have no objective standard for what's true or false, you have to appeal to like, hey, we agree on this. Hey, we agree. Hey, we agree on this. So let's agree on that.
There was a Roman Empire that rose and fell, that the Mongolian Empire, that Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean. All of these are historical accounts that we have created as a society and understood. And I'm going to make the bet, and please tell me if I'm wrong, that you believe these things, that you believe George Washington was the first president, that you believe Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
Yeah, I don't have any significant reasons to doubt those things.
So let me respond to that. So the reason you're not doubting those things is because, like myself, you agree that through the methods that as a society, as a world, we
both agree George Washington was the first president of America, so let's also agree there is no God. Huh? Come on now, come on.
Discover that the Egyptians had pyramids and the Mayans had a civilization and Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean. We trust those things because we know that we have a great system for understanding historical fact. It's not a perfect system.
No,
pretty good.
Now we come to the problem here.
So do you or don't you? So here's the question: do you or don't you believe that we have a really good system?
No. So you're confusing. So it would help to take an epistemology class, not being a rude person by saying that. But you can assert the things that are commonly held, but that doesn't tell you that you have the right theory of epistemology or the right theory of knowledge. That's another type of question. So you're confusing the pragmatic account of what most of us believe or what we think by common sense, which is not necessarily wrong, but none of that can tell you whether you have the right theory of knowledge.
I'm asking a very simple question. Do you believe?
No.
Like, I'll ask you in 8 words.
You can ask that question, but it's ignoring what I'm raising, which is epistemology and your theory of knowledge. So you can't just keep appealing to to consensus, because at the level of epistemic theory, that's a fallacy.
Okay. So I'll grant all that. So here's my question, and it's a yes or no question. And do you, Jay Dyer, think that we meaning America, society, or whatever, do we have a system for discerning historical truth that works? Do we have a system that works?
Do we?
It works for certain things, but it can't tell you the right theory of epistemology. That's the point.
I feel like invoking these terms is kind
Okay,
of...
so in other words, you don't want to go into philosophy because that would be the problem.
I want to go into philosophy, but I want you to answer my question. Do you think we have a system?
I'm answering your question, but it's such a low tier type of question that you're not familiar with what epistemic theory is. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
What?
Do I know
What is it? What is your theory of epistemology?
Epistemology is...
Are you Googling it right now?
As the notion of truth in terms of epistemic notions.
Did you Google it to read it?
I Googled it because I don't...
Yeah. Right. So you're not even aware of what the issues are. The question was, what is your theory of knowledge? Not do people believe things through common sense and consensus. Do you understand that consensus is a fallacy?
Consensus is a fallacy. Sure, yeah, that can be a fallacy if everyone just believes one thing.
Okay, so your epistemic theory was grounded on a fallacy because you said, well, what we know is what we all know, what America and the world is determined.
I'm asking you a question. Do you think that
That's a tu quoque.
What's that? I don't know what these are.
So you don't know what these... So why are you trying to debate these things if you don't know the basic fallacies?
And you're pushing back me by asking other questions. So
No, the question was about epistemology. And you're asking me another question, which is a tu quoque.
So I apologize if I ignored your question. So what... Your question that I heard was you're questioning me about whether...
I want to know your theory of knowledge because you said, we know. In fact, you said it twice. We know that this is the right approach to how we have knowledge of history. And I'm saying that is not adequate and doesn't work for grounding your epistemology. That's another type of question that you can't just appeal to consensus.
Yeah. So I don't know that... So let me try to answer your question, Jay.
Have you had a basic philosophy class? I'm not trying to be rude to you, but I can tell that you haven't.
I have.
You have, but you didn't know what epistemology was.
I don't know the definition as you're using.
Okay, but you would learn that if you had a philosophy class.
I mean, I had a degree in this. I just haven't. I just don't think it's relevant to the specific question.
So epistemology is not relevant to the question of debate. Okay.
No, sorry, so it's been a while. So the theory of knowledge. Okay, so now I remember what it is. Gotcha. So now I remember what I learned in undergrad about epistemology. I'm with you. It's an ontology, and there's, all these terms. I just look, to be honest, I don't think.
Right. So you're going to go back to appealing to avoiding the question, right? You're going to go back to appealing to your basic question.
What's your question? Your question is, what is epistemology?
We both agree law of gravity.
Wow. No. You said that we have a basic way for discerning truth, and we know. You said it twice. We know, right? And I said, how do you know that that's the right criteria for determining truth, that that's the right epistemic criteria?
How do I know? But I don't think you want to be asking that question. And the reason I don't think you want to be asking that question is because if that's a sincere question, then you're calling into question everything we know about reality.
You're not even aware of basic philosophy. So,
okay.
So if you're going to have a debate, you need to know the basic terms. Mimocrity. Epistemology, the study of epistles, like that girl said. We have a skeptic who would like to discuss tag and epistemology with you. I'm going to let him talk to you if you're okay with that. I don't want to lose my temper because he was...
Give me 1 second.
Sure. He was in here earlier, so we're going to let Jake back in to have a discussion with you. That way he doesn't feel like he has to deal with me again. And I don't want to come off as mean because we all know that I'm mean. And I just got to quit being mean. But I don't have a whole lot of patience if we're dealing with people who don't want to address, things that are pretty common in philosophy. So, Jake, if you want to have an interaction with Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, you're welcome to.
Hey, guys. Am I back in?
Sure.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for letting me back in. By the way, I didn't think you were being mean.
What is the utility of religion? Are you kidding me? Hope, freedom, intelligibility, science, philosophy.
I think we might have been talking past each other. I mean, I think I should have framed the question like this. Like, I have a particular question, and this question, in my view, doesn't require us to define and interrogate and kind of debate deeper philosophical definitions.
But our response is that it does.
Okay. So then I guess, so okay. How about, so I guess I have been ineffective and I have failed at articulating my question in such a way that has gotten a response from you. So I want to try again. And again, my goal is just to get a response. So I want to grant you everything that you want to be.
Why would even take this seriously? Why you in chat talking crap? Why you not debate me? Why you not debate me?
Granted, I want to accept the definitions as you have stated them for every philosophical term that you might have, and any claim of my own ignorance.
So I think that the impasse that we're having is that.
How you call me a troll? Obvious troll? Bro, you're the one in the chat again. You're welcome to request to join and see what a troll this is. How about that? Yeah. Troll. You atheists are so goofy. My cat is harassing me.
You think that the questions that I'm asking or the things that I'm saying to you aren't addressing what your challenge is. And my response is that the challenge is more fundamental than the question that you're asking.
The challenge is more fundamental.
Right.
I'm just...
My challenge to you is more fundamental. My response is more fundamental than the level of discourse or dispute that you have about historical events and historical claims.
Right. And so then if I'm, and by the way, it's possible that the way I'm framing this question is just not acceptable, in which case, I tried and I can chalk up my losses. But I guess here's another question. Let's say you're going for a walk one day and a 5-year-old walks up to you and he says, "Hey, you're Jay Dyer." And you're like, "Yeah." And the 5-year-old boy is like, "Hey, Jay Dyer, I have a question for you. Do we as a society have a way of ascertaining historical truth? Yes or no?" What would you say to that 5-year-old?
Again, if you restate this, it's ignoring the question that we're asking, which is that you're assuming a whole bunch of things that have not been demonstrated yet. Because the way that the question...
I'm a 5-year-old, I'm asking a question.
No, this doesn't work. Again, you don't understand why this doesn't work. But I mean, I'm not trying to be rude to you, but there's a reason why philosophy progresses in the direction that it does, and certain things happen the way that they do. It's not something that's divorced from life and reality.
Yeah.
And so
I'll do whatever it takes, man. I will do whatever it takes to get you to answer my question. What do I have to do? What do I have to answer?
I'm not really even understanding.
How do I get you to answer?
His question is, let me see if I restate it. The question is that if we have a reliable way to go about...
Do we have a reliable way? That's my question.
Again, you don't understand the question, the response. Because it's a paradigm level question, you can't just respond with the way that many people operate.
Look, guys, I'm sorry that I suck. I don't know. I try my best. I read. I try to do good arguments, but I guess I just suck. My bad.
As if that addresses the paradigm level question. Does that make sense or no?
I
I'll answer really easy.
Be mean to me. Tell me what I need to do. I will do anything, man.
Well, I'll tell
Whatever I
you.
need to do. Just answer my question. How do I get? What can I say to get you to answer my question?
I'll
can I
answer
give more
it.
definitions? Like, what do I do?
I'll
do
answer it.
Yeah.
People do have a reliable way. I argue this in my paper. At a first order, people can know things, and there's methodologies, there's normative principles. The difference is that person at the first order in an autonomous way doesn't know that. They don't know if it's reliable.
Okay.
So that's why it pushes up to a second order question is only Orthodox paradigm can actually, from a privileged epistemic point of view, say, yeah, that's a reliable historical mode. That child can know that. That's correct. That person knows. So apart from the Orthodox paradigm, people don't know that they have a reliable method. Does that make sense? So
Father Ananias, and by the way, I'd love to speak with you sometime. A lot of my viewers so I did this, what became a debate. It was an accidental impromptu debate with Jonathan Peugeot, during which I was very apologetic. I really didn't want to progress it, but we did, and I thought it was interesting. So a lot of my guests, my viewers of that debate wanted me to talk to both you, Jay Dyer, and you, Father Ananias. So if we can, I'm going to reach out to you. Hope we can connect. So Father Ananias, my question is, do you, Father Ananias, believe that we as a society have an accurate or effective way for discerning or ascertaining historical truth?
yes, I absolutely do believe.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Okay, my next, I do believe that we as a society have a way of ascertaining historical truth. And by the way, one of the amazing products history textbooks. Okay, so here's my question to Father Ananias. Because you believe in the system that we have for ascertaining historical truth, which has resulted in products like history textbooks, my question to you is, why are the stories of the Bible not in history textbooks?
Why are they not in the history textbooks?
Yes, that's my question.
When do you think the first textbook was?
Do you really want to? So let me ask you, the first textbook was after a lot of history that's recorded in the textbooks, right? We were able
The
to
first
figure
textbook
out.
is after the history in the textbooks.
Oh,
So
yeah, big time. Do you think that the Mayan civilization had history textbooks?
Dude, come on. I asked you a question. When were the first textbooks?
When were the first textbooks? I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question.
So wait a minute. Your question is premised on that the history textbooks should and ought to have the biblical stories in them if they're going to be reliable. But you don't know when the first textbooks were written.
It depends what you mean by textbook. So
What do you mean by textbook? This is your argument, dude.
You have a really interesting way of
Okay, here we go. So you have a low tier. You have it's like a kindergarten level epistemology, and when we reply with the nuance that's necessary for these questions, you act like we're short.
Question. I'm saying I don't know, and you're saying that your argument's bullshit.
Well, I'll respond.
Well, you ought to know if that's what your argument's based on.
By the way,
it's not. It isn't. It's irrelevant when the first history textbook.
Okay, so we ought to go by history textbooks.
I like how Professor Ananias is like, I could respond, guys, and Jay's so pissed at this moron.
Who cares when they and where they come from? Why don't they have the Bible?
The first history textbook was in 1482. There's your.
Did you just Google that? Like you Googled it earlier?
Yeah, I love Darth Dawkins. I know a lot of people have a problem with him, that he's, very firm and he's assertive. But I think young males need a firm, assertive father figure in their life, sort of. And I think he provides a good service, a good Christian service. I think he has a good heart. I think when people are very self-righteous, a lot of these people that come to debate Darth, you got to understand it's like young male ego going against the big alpha. They're trying to take down the alpha. So it's a lot of ego crap, and Darth doesn't have time for that. He just calls that out for what it is. And he says yeah, look, this is bullshit. And I think Darth's right to do that. But if people are really self-righteous, which most atheists are super self-righteous and like they think they know everything, if you're humble towards Darth, he'll be like patient with you. He's not perfect, right? But you can't expect Darth to be like Mr. Rogers to people who are like act like Pharisees, like self-righteous, sanctimonious, dickheads. So